hashtag we tried to tell you. Republicans across this country are doing all they can to destroy the Voting Rights Act. It's not just the South. Check this out. ProPublica has a great story where in Washington State, State Rep Paul Graves came up with a plan to scrap voting rights from people of color. The article in ProPublica is called Republicans Hashed a Secret Assault on the Voting Rights Act in Washington State. Marilyn Thompson is the reporter, joins us out of D.C. Marilyn, glad to have you here. So what's amazing with your story is that you got a Republican who's on the committee who then sees what's about to happen with a lawsuit, and he begins to privately work with Republicans across the country to derail the work that he did because he was trying to, frankly, keep Latinos from being able to have more power in Washington State.
You've just summed it up. I would say that's accurate, yes. This was one of the more unusual things I've seen, and I've been looking at redistricting now better part of a year in different states around the country.
Did we lose Marilyn? Is she still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, got it. All right, cool. All right, no, I thought we had lost your audio. All right, so what was interesting here is that here Latinos soon they were like, wait a minute, our voices are being stifled, and they actually won the case. But this guy was trying to prevent that from actually happening. So they knew what they were doing. They knew that they were messing over Latino voters, but they were trying to still hope that the federal courts and this conservative Supreme Court would let them do it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the sad thing for people of color is that the delaying tactics that you see in a case like this are just stunning. I mean, Washington State, that particular area, the Yakima Valley, they had, in 2022, they had an election based on this map that the independent commission drew. And so the judge had left that map in place, even though that map could be a clear violation of the Voting Rights Act. So, you know, and now it's dragging on again, and you've got the commissioner challenging his own work product using kind of a front guy to file a lawsuit. So it's pretty stunning stuff.
Now they were suing on behalf of Section 2. And we know that Section 4 was essentially gutted in Holder, Shelby v. Holder.
Yeah.
But Republicans have been trying to attack Section 2. Well, people have to understand, Section 2 is how we got the additional congressional seat in Louisiana, in Alabama, and they were trying to gut Section 2 in Arizona as well. Clarence Thomas wants to completely throw out the Voting Rights Act, and so if Section 2 is invalidated, if the Voting Rights Act is invalidated, then they are free to disenfranchise black and other minority voters nationwide. That's really what the Republican strategy is.
Yeah, the Section 2 is the last remaining leg of that Voting Rights Act that protects minorities against, you know, gross violation of because they can't challenge on pretty much any other basis anymore. It's okay to do partisan gerrymandering, according to our Supreme Court. You know, if you can prove racial gerrymandering under the 14th Amendment, fine. But that's a hard case to prove. So Section 2 is like a protection that people of color have been using since 2013 to really get their rights.
And shockingly, this Supreme Court has allowed Section 2 to stay in place. And again, these Republicans were shocked when they did not throw out the lower court decision in Alabama and Louisiana. They tried everything, and they swore they had the votes to basically render Section 2 invalid.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The word on the street after the Alabama decision, which upheld Section 2, the word on the street was, well, we're just going to keep trying. We're going to get this thing overturned. So we're going to try to bring a lot of other cases before the Supreme Court, because there had been signals that they could win enough support to get rid of Section 2. So you've seen this flood of cases challenging Section 2, this one in Washington State being one of them. It's really been a flood.
And what was happening in Washington State, in that area, they saw an increase in Latinos coming in there, and Republicans were scared to death that they're going to be voting Democrat. So they said, hey, what we'll just simply do is just lessen their power.
Yeah, it had been a solidly Republican area dominated by white Republicans for years. And the Latino population had surged over the past decade more than anybody really thought it could. And under the VRA, they were definitely entitled to more representation. So that's the background on that particular area, which is, it's a wonderful area, farming, agriculture, lots of migrant workers, but they haven't been represented well in years and decades.
Well, what's also hilarious about your story is that Republicans went out and recruited a Latino Republican to sue on behalf of this. And I love this part of your story where it says Garcia's testimony was also damaging. He said in his deposition that he knew little about the case brought by Latino voters until he talked with Graves, and that he rarely spoke with his own lawyers. Asked who was paying his legal fees, he could only say, I don't know. The bottom line is he was a front. That's what he was.
Yeah, well, that's a summary of what was going down here. I mean, he didn't know anything about this case, and his deposition was so damaging that the Republicans tried to get the whole deposition reversed. I mean, they went in with motions to change his answers, like where he had said yes, they wanted it to be revised, so he was saying no. It was quite comical.
Well, it's a great story, great work by Marilyn, you and the team of ProPublica. We appreciate the work that y'all do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Rebecca, this right here, again, we need to understand. These Republicans went out and said, we need to find somebody who's Latino. Same thing they do with Asians and black people. And this fool torpedoed the whole case. The story is hilarious. As Marilyn said, they sat here and they tried to, the story says, Garcia's deposition harmed the suit so much that his lawyers later tried to have much of it corrected to reverse many of his assertions, including his testimony that his lawyers rarely talked with him. The judge would not allow the corrections. They will do whatever, including cheating, to win.
This story is so comical, but it's also dangerous too. So once again, even to our earlier conversation, when different folks, not just in the comments, but, we've heard pushback from people saying, well, why should I vote? I'm going to sit out because I want to sit out and protest and show people I'm not voting. But what people really have to understand is you literally have people all across this country, some in elected positions, some in law firms, some in the halls of the Supreme Court, who are working in overtime to make sure that Black folks aren't able to vote, to make sure that Black folks don't have equal representation or are able to elect the candidate of their choice, and to make sure that Latino voters as well are denied those things. And so I know sometimes people get sick and tired of us saying, hey, this is the most important election in your lifetime, but maybe we could rephrase it and say this: every single election is important. There's a reason why there are people out there who are literally at this moment trying to take away your right to vote. So while it's comical, it is also sad, because they're going to continue to do this until they have enough stuff out there for the Supreme Court to say, all right, here it is. This is the set of cases we can consolidate and finally kill the rest of the Voting Rights Act.
And Erica, here's the deal. The article lays this out. If somebody's watching, they may be saying, okay, Roland, this is Washington State. What's the big deal? But here's what they don't understand. That there's a name called Torchinsky. His firm is Holtzman Vogel. The article says this here, that they have represented Republican congressional and Senate fundraising committees, Republican National Committee, and a long list of GOP candidates and PACs. He was involved in the battle in Texas regarding Section 2. He was involved in the Florida case regarding, again, creating alternate maps that Ron DeSantis used, and a judge overruled them. Now it's going to go to the Florida Supreme Court. This main man was involved in the case in Arkansas, where a federal panel ruled that private parties lack standing to bring Section 2 lawsuits because the law gives enforcement power only to the U.S. Attorney General. This same man, Torchinsky, filed a brief on behalf of Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, arguing that the court should not allow private parties to bring lawsuits. To everybody who's watching, if this ruling goes to the Supreme Court and stands, that means that no outside group, not NAACP, LDF, not Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, not any legal group or any Black Voters Matter, any group could file lawsuits challenging these seats. Only the government. So guess what, Erica? If Republicans win the White House, they're in charge of DOJ. They'll never file these suits. That's why we got to understand this is a national strategy of Republicans to stop the advancement of Black, Latino voters, and other minorities.
Absolutely, and to borrow from my sister Reese that talks about this breathlessly, it is really to rescind our citizenship. And when you think about the VRA and what the VRA affords, not only Black people, but people throughout this country, that if that Section 2 is successfully dismantled, all of those groups that you named, Rebecca, the work that you do to ensure fair elections, all of that work comes to a halt. So now when people look around and they talk about what are the legacy groups doing, who's working for us, we can really look around and echo and say that those institutions that we've seen for 30, 40, 50, 60 plus hundreds of years have now been decimated. And then thinking about the Department of Justice under a Trump regime, this is the same Department of Justice that they did not want to have a database of police officers who were harming citizens. So we have to take all of this into account, because what we have been afforded is a benefit, prices paid, of people who are no longer with us and some that are still with us. So to think about in 60 plus years that all of that could be reduced to zero, who do we look to actually move us to a place where we have some type of restoration or we're able to engage again? And the picture that has been painted here and that's been painted on the show for many, many years, that we don't want a Supreme Court of 9 people who have lifetime appointments, whose influence through billionaires and through rogue people who ascend to presidency, that they have actually coffers and that they have purchased these people. So it's really looking at again, our citizenship and what we may have freedom to do or not to do. And I've not lived in a lifetime where that's not been my truth. You know, outside of what is being said on social media, I don't ever want to live in a lifetime where that is my truth, because I don't know that I have the strength of a Harriet Tubman. I don't know if I have the strength of a Coretta Scott King. I don't know if I have the strength of a Sojourner Truth. So those are the things that we need to think about in terms of the freedoms that we are afforded, however flawed they are. Vote. It absolutely matters, because we could be looking in the not too distant future of not being able to do that, and then having to fight to have some type of restoration to be able to participate in the voting in as a free country.
Well, what they also don't understand is this here. If you sit your ass at home and the other side wins, they now control state rep seats, state Senate seats, state Supreme Court seats. They can control congressional seats. So they then can put their people in power. That's why it is dumb to sit at home and say, oh, I'm not going to vote. I'm just going to sit this one out. That is the dumbest thing in the world. But go ahead and be stuck on stupid. And then watch them invalidate Section 2.
Absolutely. And
Roland,
I could just add one thing that Marilyn did put in this piece, that she said that it was a covert act. But we have to recognize that these acts, we talk about it on this show breathlessly all the time, that they are very overt in their actions. They have said it, they have messaged it, they have put it in print, they screamed it. They are only interested in power, and they have to step over the blood of you and your children. They're not extending Medicaid. They don't give a damn about jobs. All they care about is power, their own power. And to understand that a person that has been elected, that is being paid by the same government that they don't want you to have rights in, to not have that be the engine to cause you to go and vote, that says a lot about what you actually internalize as freedom as a person that actually has the ability to vote.
Roland,
Rebecca,
can
go
I
ahead.
also add another? So here's the thing. When I think about my parents, they were born and they didn't have full voting rights. My parents had to wait, even into adulthood to actually have full voting rights. So that means in my family, I am the first generation that has full voting rights, that was born into full voting rights. So what we're seeing with this ideology that's going across this country, that's rooted in white supremacy, is that we're first. Erica, I think we're both first generation with full voting rights as a Black person, as Black people in this country. And so what we're seeing, especially on the right, is that they want to reverse that. They want to destroy to make sure that we are the first and the last to be born into full voting rights. That's what's happening in front of us. And I really want to make sure that people are locked in and that they're paying attention, because this is happening now. This isn't a slow march, but this is a fast march to removing rights and removing full citizenship in this country to Black folks.